There's a strange discomfort in realizing that nothing stays the same, not the world, not the people around you, and definitely not you. Heraclitus, a pre-Socratic philosopher, captured this truth in a single haunting phrase: you can't step in the same river twice. At first glance, it sounds poetic, maybe even a little cliché. But if you sit with it long enough, it starts to dig into your mind like a splinter. Because this isn't just about rivers or poetic metaphors, it's about the truth of existence. The river changes because the water flows. You change because time moves. And no matter how hard you try to recreate a moment, revisit a feeling, or return to some familiar version of yourself, you'll find it's already gone. Heraclitus wasn't just making a philosophical observation. He was issuing a warning: stop trying to hold on. Life is not a thing you can possess. It's a current, a motion, a ceaseless becoming. And if you live as though it's fixed, you'll suffer in ways that feel deeply personal but are actually universal. Think about it. How often do we chase stability as if it were a destination? We want the job that won't change, the relationship that won't evolve, the body that won't age, the mind that won't forget. We cling to moments, people, identities as if by holding on tighter, we can stop the flow. But the river doesn't care how tightly you grip the shoreline. It moves anyway. And the more you resist that movement, the more pain you create. That's the real tragedy. Not that things change, but that we expect them not to. We want permanence in an impermanent world. We want guarantees in a life that offers none. And so we suffer not because life is cruel, but because our expectations are impossible. You can't step in the same river twice. Not because the river has changed, but because you have. You are not the same person you were yesterday. Your cells, your thoughts, your memories, your emotions, they're all in flux. So who exactly is trying to step in again?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
This raises a terrifying and beautiful question. Who are you if you are always changing? Most of us build our identity like a house bricks of personality, habits, preferences, roles. But Heraclitus is telling us that our identity is more like a flame burning, flickering, dancing in the wind, always shifting, never static. And that should humble us. Because it means that even the things we think are most us, our beliefs, our values, our dreams, are just passing states in the river of being. But instead of allowing this truth to set us free, we often fight it. We try to make things permanent. We idealize the past. We obsess over the future. And we miss the only thing that's real, the flow of now. How many moments of your life have you missed because you were trying to relive a past that no longer exists? How many opportunities have passed you by because you were frozen in the idea of who you used to be? Here's where this gets deeply practical. If everything is changing, then your job isn't to resist change, it's to move with it, and to dance with the river rather than drown in it. That means letting go of outdated versions of yourself. It means grieving identities that no longer fit. It means accepting that sometimes what served you yesterday will sabotage you today. That's not weakness, that's evolution. And yet, how often do we cling to a version of ourselves just because it's familiar? How often do we stay in relationships, careers, mindsets, not because they're true, but because they're comfortable? But comfort is not the same as truth. And familiarity is not the same as freedom. Heraclitus is daring us to live in alignment with reality. And reality is motion. Reality is change. Reality is that river, and you are either flowing with it or being crushed beneath it. There is no standing still. So what does this mean for your actual life? It means you have to stop trying to go back. Whatever back means for you, back to when you were happier, thinner, more motivated, more innocent, it's gone. And not because you failed, but because life moves. You can't go back, but you can go forward. You can grow, you can evolve, you can become something new. But not if you're stuck trying to re-enter a river that no longer exists with a self that's already transformed. And this isn't just about embracing change, it's about becoming change. It's about realizing that you are not just in the river. You are the river. You are the current. You are the motion. You are the ever-becoming experience of life itself. And the moment you accept that, everything shifts. You stop needing things to stay the same. You stop fearing the unknown. You stop resisting who you are becoming. So I ask you now, what part of your life are you trying to freeze? What part of your identity are you clinging to even though it no longer serves you? What illusions of permanence are keeping you from experiencing the beauty of becoming? Heraclitus didn't give us easy answers. He gave us a mirror, and in that mirror we see the truth that life is not a destination. It's a river. And if you can learn to flow with it rather than fight it, you might just discover that the current is not your enemy, it's your liberation. You are the river. Why identity is just a temporary pattern in motion. We like to believe there's a solid I at the center of everything we do, some stable, unchanging self that stays constant while everything else changes around it. But Heraclitus would say that belief is a comfortable illusion. Because if you look closely, there's no fixed identity to be found. Not in your body, which is constantly regenerating cells. Not in your memories, which are unstable, altered by time and emotion. Not even in your thoughts, which flicker and shift moment to moment like light on water. If you are always changing, then who really are you? This is not just a philosophical question. It's the question. Because if we continue living under the assumption that we are something fixed, we will suffer every time life asks us to change. And it will ask us to change again and again. So what if we flip the whole script? What if we stopped thinking of identity as a noun and started seeing it as a verb? You are not a thing. You are a process, a pattern, a movement. Kind of like a flame, it has shape, energy, rhythm, but it's not static. The moment the fuel changes, the flame changes. The moment the wind shifts, the flame dances differently. And yet we still try to define ourselves with rigid labels. I'm an introvert. I'm ambitious. I'm not good at relationships. But all of that is just a snapshot of a moment in the stream. It might have been true once. It might be true now. But it won't be true forever. The deeper truth is this: you are not a fixed self-surviving change, you are change expressing itself as a self. You are the river pretending, just for a moment, to be a solid thing. And when that moment ends, the river keeps flowing. What happens when we stop fighting that? Here's what happens, freedom. Because if identity is fluid, then nothing about you is final. That means you are never stuck, never doomed, never trapped by your past. You might have made mistakes. You might have been lost. You might have believed things that no longer serve you. But none of that defines you. It only describes a version of you that existed, not one that exists now. and certainly not one you are required to carry forward. You can let it go. You can shift. You can reinvent, not because you're being fake, but because you're being honest about what life really is. A never-ending river of becoming. And once you see that, you stop fearing change and start using it. You start shaping yourself intentionally, like a sculptor with clay. You ask, who do I want to be in this next moment of the river? What values do I want to embody? What habits align with the me I'm becoming, not the one I've been? But the mind resists this, because the mind craves certainty. It wants to know what to expect. It wants to say, this is who I am, and be done with it. That's why change is so painful, not because it's unnatural, but because it violates the story we're attached to. But what if the story was the problem? What if the very idea of a fixed me is the source of our confusion, our anxiety, our suffering? Heraclitus didn't just want us to accept change, he wanted us to identify with it. He wanted us to see that we are the current, not the stone, the flame, not the candle. And that realization is both terrifying and exhilarating. And terrifying because it means there's nothing permanent to cling to. Exhilarating because it means there's nothing holding you back. So let's make this real. Think about the person you were 5 years ago. Would that version of you recognize the person you are today? Would they understand your current struggles, your values, your dreams? Probably not. And that's not a failure. That's growth. That's what it means to be alive. But here's the deeper challenge. Are you willing to let go of who you were in order to become who you are? Are you willing to release the identity you've outgrown, even if it once saved you? Are you brave enough to admit that the person you've been is not the person you need to be moving forward? This isn't about abandoning yourself. It's about evolving into a truer version of you, one that aligns with the present, not the past. Because the past is not your prison. It's your compost. It's where the old you dissolves so the new you can grow. And once you stop trying to step into the same river twice, once you stop clinging to the illusion of sameness, you start to experience the real power of life, the freedom to change, to adapt, to flow, not as something that happens to you, but something that you are. That is the gift Heraclitus points us toward. Not just the awareness that everything changes, but the realization that you are the change. The pain of holding on, why we suffer when we resist the flow of life. If you've ever felt stuck, torn between wanting things to stay the same and knowing they can't, then you've already tasted the pain Heraclitus was trying to point us away from. The pain doesn't come from change itself, it comes from our resistance to it. We suffer when we try to step into the same river twice, not because the river changed, but because we expected it not to. That's the real source of our suffering, expectation colliding with reality. And yet we do it all the time. We hold on to friendships that have expired, not because they nourish us anymore, but because they remind us of who we used to be. We cling to careers, beliefs, and roles that no longer fit, because letting them go would mean admitting we've changed. But we have changed, and the longer we deny that, the more it hurts. It's like trying to swim upstream with your arms full of driftwood things that once helped you float, but are now dragging you under. The problem is, we don't just hold on to things, we build identities out of them. We say, that relationship was part of me, or that version of me was my best self. And when those things shift, we feel like we are breaking. But it's not you that's breaking. It's the illusion. The illusion that life is supposed to stay still. that people are supposed to stay the same, that you can somehow anchor yourself in a river that never stops moving. But what if the breaking is not a breakdown, but a breakthrough? What if the pain of letting go isn't punishment, but permission? What if every time something falls apart, it's not the end, but the beginning of a deeper alignment with the truth? Let's get brutally honest. How much of your current anxiety comes from trying to keep something alive that's already dead? Maybe it's an identity. Maybe it's a dream you outgrew. Maybe it's a version of yourself that you keep performing even though it exhausts you. We don't suffer because things change, we suffer because we resist the truth of that change. We suffer because we look at the river and say, no, I liked it better yesterday. I want that version back. But yesterday's river is gone, and so is yesterday's you. And that's not tragic, it's natural. It's necessary, because without change, without flow, there's no growth. There's no evolution. There's no you, not in any meaningful sense. To be alive is to be in motion. To be human is to be in process. But here's the paradox. We think that holding on keeps us safe. We think that if we can just preserve what once worked, it will protect us from uncertainty. But the opposite is true. Clinging creates suffering. Attachment creates pain. Because when you grip too tightly to something impermanent, you're trying to make it do something it was never meant to do. You're asking it to be forever in a world that only promises now. The river never promised stability. It promised movement. It promised change. And when we try to turn it into a pond, when we try to freeze it, we ruin the very thing that makes it beautiful. So what's the way out? Surrender. Not in the passive, defeated sense, but in the conscious, powerful sense. The kind of surrender that says, I trust the flow more than my fear. The kind of surrender that lets go not because it's easy, but because it's true. Because deep down you already know that what's meant to stay will stay, not because you force it, but because it belongs in the moment you're becoming. And what's meant to go will go, no matter how tightly you hold on. So why suffer in the process? Why make pain your companion when peace is available on the other side of letting go? Ask yourself, what are you afraid will happen if you let go? And then dig deeper, what are you afraid will happen if you become someone new? These are the questions that Heraclitus wanted us to confront. Not because they're comfortable, but because they're freeing. Because in answering them, we come face to face with the truth that we are not here to stay the same. We are here to flow, to transform, to be the river, not the rock. And when you finally stop resisting that, when you stop trying to step into the same river twice, you don't just find peace. You find power. The power to live fully, deeply, presently. Not as someone trying to preserve a dying past, but as someone dancing with the eternal now. How the flow of time reveals the truth about presence and power. There is only one moment that ever truly exists, and it's this one. Right now. Not the memory of yesterday. Not the anticipation of tomorrow. Just now. And yet, we live most of our lives outside of it. We chase the past, trying to reclaim something we think we lost. We project into the future, hoping to secure something we think we need. But all the while, life is happening only and always in this present moment. Heraclitus knew this. When he said you can't step in the same river twice, he wasn't just speaking about change, he was pointing to something deeper, the illusion of time. The idea that we're moving through a linear sequence of moments is comforting, but false. In truth, Everything happens in an eternal now. The river doesn't flow through time. The river is time. And so are you. To understand this is to reclaim your power. Because the present is the only place where anything real can happen. It's the only space where you can act, choose, love, forgive, create, or change. Everything else is either a memory or a fantasy. But here's the problem: we don't trust the present. We think we need to control it by planning the future or diagnosing the past. We think we need to protect ourselves by escaping into stories, labels, or distractions. But in doing so, we abandon the very moment that holds the key to everything. We leave the river while pretending we're still in it. And then we wonder why we feel anxious, disconnected, powerless. The truth is, presence is not passive. It's not just sitting quietly and breathing deeply, though, that can help. Presence is a fierce commitment to reality. It's the willingness to face what is without flinching, to meet the moment as it is, not as you wish it were. And in that meeting, something miraculous happens. You become real, not the story of you, not the idea of you, but you, alive and unfiltered, flowing with the river instead of resisting it. And from that place, your power returns, the power to respond instead of react, to choose consciously instead of defaulting to patterns, to be here fully instead of being lost in what might have been or what could be. Ask yourself this: if you weren't afraid of losing what you had or not getting what you want, who would you be right now? What would you do if you stopped living in fear of change and started trusting the intelligence of the flow? Because the river doesn't need your control. It needs your participation. It needs your presence. And the more you learn to return to the now over and over again, the more you realize this was never about stepping in the same river twice. It was about realizing that there is only one river, and it's always right here, moving, becoming, alive, just like you. Now stop trying to hold the river, just feel it.